Megan Taylor rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the screens in front of her. Working the night shift at Earth's Deep Space Communications Array was usually boring. Most nights, nothing interesting happened. She sipped her coffee and checked the readings again. Then she heard it, a broken signal coming from far away. This is Nova Colony. Under attack. Unknown vessels. Helpless. Megan sat up straight. Her heart started beating faster. Nova Colony was humanity's farthest settlement, home to over 2 million people. She quickly pressed the emergency button and began to record the incoming transmission. The main screen flickered to life, showing scenes that made her blood run cold. Massive alien ships with strange, angular designs were firing on the colony's defenses. Buildings collapsed. People ran screaming. The colony's defensive ships exploded one after another. This is Governor Dale Peterson of Nova Colony. We are under attack by an unknown alien force. Our defenses are failing. We need immediate military assistance. I repeat, we need. The transmission cut off suddenly. Megan tried to restore the connection, her fingers flying across the control panel. Nothing worked. Get me Admiral Morrison. Now, she shouted to her assistant. Across the planet, in his apartment overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Jack Morrison was jolted awake by the urgent call. He had seen war before. 20 years ago, he had lost his wife and daughter in the border skirmishes with the Centauri rebels. Since then, he had dedicated his life to protecting humanity. "What is it?" he asked, his voice rough from sleep. "Sir, we've received a distress call from Nova Colony. They're under attack." The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Morrison was fully awake now. "Show me." After watching the footage, he dressed quickly and headed to the defense headquarters. By the time he arrived, the emergency council was already gathering. The room buzzed with nervous energy as military leaders and government officials took their seats. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison began, "at 3:42 hours Earth Standard Time, we received a distress call from Nova Colony. Based on the footage, they are under attack by an unknown alien species with advanced technology. We have lost all contact with the colony." Intelligence analyst Eric Powell stepped forward. The young man looked like he hadn't slept in days. "From what we can see in the transmission, these aliens have technology far beyond what we've encountered before. Their weapons cut through our strongest shields like they weren't even there." "How many ships?" asked Defense Minister Helen Garcia. "We counted at least 30 large warships, ma'am. And that's just what was visible in the footage." The room fell silent. Humanity had spread to 12 star systems, but they had never faced a threat like this. "What are our options?" President William Cole finally asked. Admiral Morrison stood tall. "Sir, with your permission, I recommend activating all military forces immediately. We need to send every combat-ready ship we have." "That would leave Earth and our inner colonies defenseless," argued Economic Director Ben Foster. "If we don't stop them at Nova Colony, there won't be any colonies to defend." Morrison replied sharply. "This isn't just an attack. It's an extinction threat, and humanity won't go quietly." President Cole looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. Then he nodded slowly. "Admiral Morrison, you have full authority. Activate all fleets. Recall every ship. I'm declaring a state of emergency across all human space." As the meeting broke up, Morrison stayed behind, staring at the frozen image of the alien ships on the screen. He had seen that look in an enemy's eyes before. These aliens hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to wipe humanity out. "Not on my watch," he whispered. "Not again." Deep beneath the Arctic ice, Commander Laura Bennett stood in an elevator that hadn't moved in 25 years. The air smelled stale as the ancient machinery groaned to life. Her security team exchanged nervous glances as they descended into darkness. "How much farther?" asked Lieutenant Paul Carter, the youngest member of her team. "Another mile down," Laura replied calmly. She had studied the classified files on this facility for years, never expecting to actually visit it. What we're about to see has been hidden from the public since the Great Peace of 2198. The elevator finally stopped with a shudder. When the doors opened, darkness greeted them. Laura stepped forward and pressed her palm against a scanner on the wall. Lights flickered on one by one, revealing an enormous underground hangar. "My God," whispered Carter. 5 massive warships sat in perfect formation. Each was 3 times larger than the biggest ships in Earth's current fleet. Their black hulls were covered with weapons unlike anything built in the last century. "Meet humanity's insurance policy," Laura said. "The Dreadnought-class super destroyers. The Pentagon, the Colossus, the Behemoth, the Juggernaut, and the Leviathan." "I thought these were just stories to scare children," said Security Chief Nathan Reed. Laura smiled grimly. "That's what we wanted everyone to think." The Peace Treaty of 2198 required all nations to disarm their major weapons, but some leaders didn't trust that peace would last forever. These ships were built in secret and sealed away, waiting for the day humanity might need them. She turned to her team. "That day has come. We have orders to reactivate all 5 ships within 48 hours. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Frank Collins was fishing when his emergency communicator beeped. The old man frowned. Nobody had used that channel in 15 years. He opened the message and his weathered face turned pale. The code on the screen was one he had hoped never to see. Prometheus, UNCHANED. Frank quickly packed his few belongings and headed to his small ship. As the former head of advanced weapons research, he knew exactly what that code meant. Project Nemesis was being activated. He had designed the weapon system himself, then locked it away when he realized how destructive it truly was. The old scientist had hoped to die peacefully, knowing his creation would never be used. Now, as his ship broke orbit from the asteroid he had called home, Frank felt the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. "It must be bad," he muttered to himself. "Very bad." At Mars Military Academy, Dean Catherine Ward walked quickly down the silent hallway. It was just past midnight in Martian time. She stopped at a door and knocked firmly. A young man with messy brown hair opened it, looking confused. "Dean Ward." "It's the middle of the night." "Cadet Alan Murphy, pack your things. You're being commissioned immediately." Alan blinked in surprise. "But I have another year of training." "War doesn't care about your training schedule," Catherine replied sharply. "You and 9 other cadets have been selected for immediate field promotion. You leave in 1 hour." As Alan rushed to pack, Catherine handed him a datapad. "Your assignment. Memorize it, then delete it." Alan looked down at the screen, and his eyes widened. "The U.S. Retribution. But that's just a research vessel." Catherine's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's what everyone was told. It's actually the most advanced stealth destroyer ever built. And you, Lieutenant Murphy, are now its tactical officer." An hour later, 10 bewildered cadets boarded a shuttle heading for Earth's moon. None of them spoke. They all knew that something terrible must have happened for cadets to be given officer ranks and assigned to active duty. As the shuttle accelerated away from Mars, Alan looked at his new uniform with its lieutenant's insignia. Yesterday, he had been studying for exams. Today, he was heading to war against an enemy he knew nothing about. The shuttle pilot's voice came over the speakers. "We'll be rendezvousing with the U.S. Retribution in 6 hours. Admiral Morrison himself will brief you on the situation. Until then, try to get some sleep. You're going to need it." Sleep was the last thing on Alan's mind as he stared out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, an enemy was coming, and humanity was preparing to fight back with everything it had. The moon base Artemis buzzed with activity as ships arrived from every corner of human space. Admiral Morrison stood at the main viewing window, watching as hundreds of vessels moved into formation. Engineers and mechanics worked around the clock, fitting older ships with new weapon systems. "Admiral, "The U.S. Vindicator has arrived," reported his aide. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. The Vindicator was the pride of Earth's fleet, a massive carrier that could launch over 200 fighter craft. Its commander, Captain Sofia Rodriguez, was one of the best officers he had ever trained. "Send Captain Rodriguez to my office as soon as she docks," he ordered. In the shipyards below, the work never stopped. Factories that once built civilian vessels now produced missiles, torpedoes, and armor plating. The sound of welding and hammering filled the air as humanity prepared for the greatest battle in its history. Dr. Gregory Howard had not slept in 3 days. His eyes were red as he studied the footage from Nova Colony for the 100th time. Something about the alien ships bothered him. There was a pattern to their shield fluctuations, a rhythm he could almost grasp. "Play it again," he told his assistant. "Slow it down to 1/10 speed." As the footage played, Dr. Howard leaned forward. There, when the aliens fired their main weapons, their shields weakened for a split second near the rear propulsion system. "I found something," he said, excitement in his voice. "It's a weakness in their defensive systems. If we can hit them at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right spot. But that would require getting extremely close to their ships," his assistant pointed out. Dr. Howard nodded grimly. "Yes, suicide close, but it might be our only chance." He quickly sent his findings to Admiral Morrison, knowing that exploiting this weakness would cost many brave pilots their lives. At the edge of the Kuiper Belt, Commander Laura Bennett and her Special Forces team drifted silently in space. Their small stealth ship had been waiting for hours. Intelligence had reported that alien scout ships were passing through this sector. "Contact," whispered her sensor officer. "Single alien vessel approaching." Laura gave the signal. Her team had trained for this moment. As the alien scout ship passed by, they attached their vessel to its hull using magnetic clamps. Special cutting tools sliced through the alien metal. Within minutes, Laura and her team were inside. The aliens were tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. They fought fiercely, but the surprise was complete. Within 10 minutes, the human team had control of the ship. 2 aliens had been killed in the fighting. The captain was wounded but alive. "Secure the prisoner," Laura ordered, "and download everything from their computers." The captured alien was taken back to Lunar Base for questioning. The information they gained was troubling. "They call themselves the Krellinar," reported the intelligence officer. "From what we've translated, they believe they're conducting a preemptive strike." "Preemptive?" Admiral Morrison frowned. "Against what?" "Against us, sir. They intercepted some of our military transmissions and believed we were planning to attack them." "A misunderstanding," Morrison said bitterly. 2 million people dead because of a misunderstanding. He looked at the tactical display showing the gathering human fleet. 5 super dreadnoughts formed the core, surrounded by hundreds of smaller vessels. The U.S. Vindicator's fighter squadrons practiced attack maneuvers. The stealth destroyer U.S. Retribution waited in the shadows. Captain Rodriguez entered his office and saluted. "The Vindicator is ready for action." "Sir." Morrison nodded. "Good. We jump to Epsilon Eridani in 6 hours. Intelligence suggests that's where the enemy fleet is regrouping." "And after that?" Rodriguez asked. "After that?" Morrison's eyes were hard. "We show these Krellinar exactly how deadly humanity can be when provoked." As he dismissed her, Morrison looked once more at the massive fleet assembled outside his window. Never before had humanity gathered such destructive power in one place. He hoped it would be enough. One way or another, he whispered to himself, this war ends at Nova Colony. The jump to Epsilon Eridani took less than an hour. One moment, the human fleet was near Earth's moon. The next, they appeared at the edge of a system 16 light-years away. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as sensors detected the alien presence. "Enemy fleet detected," reported the sensor officer. 47 large vessels and over 100 smaller craft. Morrison nodded. "Launch fighters. Captain Rodriguez, you may begin your attack. Aboard the U.S. Vindicator, Captain Sofia Rodriguez felt the deck vibrate as fighter bay doors opened. Her pilots were the best in the fleet, but they had never faced an enemy like this before. "Remember your training," she said over the comm. "Hit their rear sections when they fire their main weapons. That's when their shields are weakest." 200 fighters launched from the Vindicator, streaking toward the surprised alien fleet. The Krelnar had not expected humans to arrive so quickly or attack so boldly. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons and explosions. Human pilots flew with desperate courage, targeting the weak points Dr. Howard had identified. For every alien ship damaged, however, 3 human fighters were destroyed. "We're taking heavy losses," Rodriguez reported grimly. But something unexpected was happening. The alien fleet seemed confused by the humans' ferocity. Several of their ships began to pull back, their formations breaking. "They didn't expect us to fight back so hard," Morrison realized. "They thought we would be easy prey." Lieutenant Alan Murphy watched the battle from the bridge of the U.S. Retribution. The stealth destroyer hung back from the main fight, invisible to enemy sensors. Its orders were to observe and report. But Murphy saw something the others didn't, a gap in the alien formation. "Captain," he said urgently to his commanding officer, "if we slip through there, we could get behind their entire fleet. We could gather critical intelligence on their numbers and positions." Captain Steve Owen frowned. "Our orders are to stay with the main fleet. By the time we get new orders, that gap will be closed," Murphy argued. "This is our chance to make a difference." Owen hesitated, then nodded. "Do it. But if we're discovered, it's on your head, Lieutenant." The Retribution slipped silently through the gap in the alien formation. Its advanced stealth systems kept it hidden as it penetrated deep into enemy territory. Murphy directed the sensor officers to record everything: ship positions, communications frequencies, weapon systems. "Sir," one officer said nervously, "I'm detecting a massive fleet gathering beyond this system, at least 3 times what we're fighting now." Murphy's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a raiding party. It was an invasion force. On Earth, Defense Minister Diana White faced the United Nations Security Council. The room was tense as reports from the battle reached them. "The enemy is stronger than we anticipated," she admitted, "but our forces are fighting bravely." "What options do we have?" asked the Chinese representative. White took a deep breath. "I am authorizing the deployment of Hellfire torpedoes." The room erupted in protest. Hellfire torpedoes were planet killers, banned under every interstellar convention. "You cannot be serious," shouted the European delegate. White played the recordings from Nova Colony's destruction. The screams of dying civilians filled the chamber. When it ended, there was silence. "These aliens didn't come to negotiate," she said quietly. "They came to exterminate us. I will use every weapon at our disposal to make sure humanity survives." The vote was close, but in the end, the Council approved her decision. Back in space, the battle was turning. Human determination was making up for their technological disadvantage. Captain Rodriguez's fighters had destroyed 12 enemy capital ships, though at terrible cost. Only 80 of her 200 fighters remained. As the alien fleet began to withdraw, Admiral Morrison received an urgent transmission from the U.S. Retribution. "Admiral," Lieutenant Murphy reported, "there's another fleet coming, much larger than this one. They're gathering at Proxima Centauri." Morrison's face hardened. "Good work, Lieutenant. Return to the fleet immediately." He turned to his officers. "The Battle of Epsilon Eridani is won, but the war is just beginning. Set course for Proxima Centauri." Proxima Centauri, the star closest to Earth's sun, glowed red in the darkness of space. Around it, the alien armada waited. Their ships formed a tight defensive position around a large space station that served as their command center. Admiral Morrison studied the enemy formation on the tactical display. The human fleet had arrived at the edge of the system, just beyond the alien sensor range. This would be humanity's most important battle since the colony wars 50 years ago. They outnumber us 3-1, said his tactical officer. Morrison nodded. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. He turned to his communications officer. Signal all ships. Begin Operation Trident. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The main battle group, led by Morrison himself, would attack the alien fleet head-on. Commander Bennett's special forces would slip behind enemy lines to attack the command station, and Captain Rodriguez would lead a squadron of bombers to destroy the alien supply ships. All ships, advance, ordered Morrison. Lieutenant Murphy stood at his tactical station on the U.S. Retribution. After his successful intelligence mission, he had been ordered to join Captain Rodriguez's bomber squadron. Their mission was perhaps the most dangerous of all. They would need to fly straight through the heart of the enemy fleet to reach the supply ships beyond. This is a one-way trip for most of us, Rodriguez had told her pilots honestly. But if we succeed, we cut off their resources. Without fuel and ammunition, their fleet is just metal floating in space. As the bombers launched, Murphy's fingers flew over his console. The stealth systems of the Retribution would keep them hidden until the last possible moment. Commander Laura Bennett and her team of 12 Special Forces soldiers moved silently toward the alien command station. Their small ship was barely larger than a shuttle, with advanced stealth technology making it nearly invisible. Remember the plan, Bennett told her team. We plant the charges at these 3 locations, then extract before detonation. Her second-in-command, Sergeant Peter Ellis, checked his weapon. And if we meet resistance, we're not here to fight a war, Bennett replied. We're here to end one. Their ship docked with the station using the access codes they had stolen from the captured scout ship. As they moved through the alien corridors, they encountered surprisingly little resistance. Most of the station's crew was focused on the battle unfolding outside. Admiral Morrison watched as the main fleets clashed. Human ships fired everything they had, targeting the weak points in the alien shields. The super dreadnoughts, reactivated after decades in storage, proved their worth. Their powerful weapons tore through multiple enemy ships with each volley. But the aliens were fighting back hard. The human cruiser Dallas exploded, taking its crew of 300 with it. 2 destroyers followed shortly after. We're taking heavy losses, reported Morrison's aide. Then came the news he had been dreading. The U.S. Vindicator is hit badly, sir. Captain Rodriguez reports engine failure and massive hull breaches. Morrison closed his eyes briefly. The Vindicator was their largest carrier, with a crew of over 2,000. Order evacuation, he said grimly. Captain Rodriguez limped through the smoke-filled corridors of her dying ship. The Vindicator had taken multiple direct hits while protecting the bomber squadron. All personnel to escape pods. She ordered over the ship-wide comm. Abandon ship. As her crew rushed to evacuate, Rodriguez made her way to the bridge. Someone needed to keep the ship's weapons firing to draw attention away from the escaping pods. At the critical moment, Lieutenant Murphy made his decision. Instead of staying with the bomber squadron, he ordered the Retribution to break cover. New heading, he told the helmsman. Straight for the alien flagship. Using the data from Dr. Howard's research, Murphy targeted the exact moment when the alien flagship fired its main weapon. In that split second, the Retribution fired all torpedoes at the exposed weak point. The alien flagship's shields collapsed. A chain reaction tore through its power systems, causing a massive explosion that damaged several nearby ships. Direct hit, shouted Murphy's weapons officer. But their victory was short-lived. Now exposed, the Retribution came under heavy fire from all sides. On the command station, Commander Bennett planted the last explosive charge. Suddenly, alarms blared. They had been discovered. Charges set, she reported over the secure channel to Morrison. But we're cut off from our extraction point. Can you make it back to your ship? Morrison asked. A weapons fire erupted around them. Bennett saw 2 of her team fall. Negative, Admiral. Complete the mission. That's an order. She activated the timer on the charges, 3 minutes until detonation. The battle had reached its turning point. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold with growing concern. Despite their initial success, the human fleet was taking heavy damage. The aliens were regrouping, using their superior numbers to surround the human ships. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Frank Collins. He's arrived at the edge of the system." Morrison felt a surge of hope. Project Nemesis had finally arrived. "Put him through," Morrison ordered. The weathered face of the old scientist appeared on screen. "Admiral, I'm here with the package. Request permission to deploy." "Granted, Collins, and may God help us all." On the alien command station, Commander Bennett and her remaining team members were pinned down by enemy fire. The explosives they had planted would detonate in less than 2 minutes, taking out the station's central control systems. "We're not going to make it out, are we?" asked Sergeant Ellis, clutching his wounded shoulder. Bennett checked her weapon. "Focus on the mission, Sergeant, not survival." Suddenly, the alien troops surrounding them stopped firing. A tall Krelnar in ornate armor stepped forward. "Surrender," it said in broken English. "You, valuable." Bennett hesitated. Capture meant they might survive, but it also meant the aliens could extract information about Earth's defenses. Before she could decide, an explosion rocked the station. Not from their charges. Something else had hit the station from outside. Frank Collins piloted his small ship toward the center of the battle. To anyone watching, it seemed suicidal. One tiny vessel heading straight into the largest concentration of alien ships. Inside the ship, Collins sat before a complex control panel. His hands trembled slightly as he entered the final activation sequence for Project Nemesis. "I'm sorry," he whispered, though there was no one to hear him. "I never wanted it to come to this." He pressed the launch button. From his ship, thousands of tiny objects, each no larger than a grain of rice, scattered into space. They looked harmless, almost invisible against the backdrop of the battle. The aliens didn't even notice them. Lieutenant Murphy had managed to keep the U.S. Retribution intact despite heavy damage. As they limped away from the alien flagship, he noticed something strange on his sensors. "What are those?" he asked his science officer. "Unknown, sir. They're too small to be missiles, but they're spreading throughout the enemy fleet." Murphy watched in fascination as the tiny objects attached themselves to the hulls of alien ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the objects began to multiply. "They're reproducing," the science officer said in disbelief. Frank Collins watched his creation at work. Project Nemesis was a swarm of self-replicating nanobots designed to target specific molecular structures in the alien ship hulls. The nanobots would use the material of the ships themselves to create more nanobots, essentially eating the vessels from the inside out. When he had first designed the weapon, Collins had realized its horrifying potential. That was why he had locked it away. Now, as he watched the alien ships begin to disintegrate, he felt no triumph, only a deep sadness. The effect on the alien fleet was devastating. Ships began to crumble as their hulls were consumed from within. Panic spread through the Krelnar forces as they realized what was happening. They tried to retreat, but the infection spread too quickly. "They're breaking formation," reported Morrison's tactical officer. "The entire fleet is in disarray." On Earth, Dr. Howard was monitoring the battle through long-range sensors. As data about Project Nemesis came in, his face grew pale. "This is too effective," he said to his team. "The nanobots are replicating exponentially. If they're not contained, they could spread beyond the targeted ships." He quickly sent an urgent message to Admiral Morrison. "Weapon exceeding containment parameters. Recommend immediate shutdown protocol." Commander Bennett felt the station shake as more systems failed. Through a viewport, she could see alien ships falling apart. Whatever weapon humanity had deployed was working with terrifying efficiency. The Krelnar commander who had tried to capture them now looked at her with what seemed like fear. "What have you done?" it asked. Before Bennett could answer, the station's internal communication system crackled to life. A desperate message from the alien fleet was being broadcast. "Cease attack. We offer terms. Willing to negotiate." Admiral Morrison received the same message. At the same time, his intelligence officer approached with troubling news. "Sir, we've confirmed that Commander Bennett's team has been captured. The aliens are threatening to execute them if we don't call off our attack." Morrison stared at the tactical display, watching as the alien fleet continued to disintegrate. They had the upper hand now, but at what cost? And was the aliens' offer genuine, or just a delaying tactic? The fate of the battle, and perhaps both species, hung in the balance. Lieutenant Alan Murphy stared at the tactical display on the damaged bridge of the U.S. Retribution. He had just received news of Commander Bennett's capture and the aliens' offer to negotiate. But something didn't feel right. Why would they want to talk now? He asked his officers. "They're losing, but they still have a powerful weapon they haven't used." The science officer looked up from her console. "Sir, I've been analyzing their communications. There are strange power readings coming from the far side of the planet. It could be the weapon you're talking about." Murphy made his decision. "Set course for those coordinates. Keep stealth systems at maximum." Despite Admiral Morrison's orders to stand down until negotiations could begin, Murphy guided the Retribution toward the hidden alien installation. Commander Laura Bennett was brought before the Krollar High Commander. The alien was taller than the others, with skin that had a blue tint. Its 4 arms were decorated with what looked like battle marks. "Your people used terrible weapons," it said in broken English. Bennett met its gaze steadily. "You started this war. You destroyed Nova Colony without warning." "Necessary," replied the alien. "Your messages, plans to attack us." "What messages?" Bennett asked, confused. The alien activated a screen showing human military transmissions. Bennett recognized them immediately. Routine defense drills and training exercises, but taken out of context, they could indeed look threatening. "A misunderstanding," she said quietly. "We weren't planning to attack you." The alien commander seemed uncertain. "Too late now. If we die, you die too." It pointed to a large device being prepared nearby. "Sun killer ready. If your fleet does not retreat, we use it." Bennett felt cold fear grip her heart. A weapon that could destroy a star would kill everyone in the system, aliens and humans alike. The Retribution slipped silently through space, approaching the alien installation. Murphy could now see the massive device aimed at Proxima Centauri. His sensors confirmed the worst. It was gathering energy for a catastrophic discharge. "We need to take that out," he told his crew. "And we need to find Commander Bennett." Using the ship's stealth systems, they docked at an unguarded airlock. Murphy led a small team inside, moving quickly through the alien corridors. They found Bennett and her surviving team members in a holding cell. The rescue was quick. The aliens were too focused on their doomsday weapon to notice the intruders. "Lieutenant," Bennett looked surprised to see Murphy. "I thought you were with the main fleet." "Change of plans," Murphy replied, handing her a weapon. "We need to stop them from firing that sun killer." Admiral Morrison received the urgent message from the Retribution. "Sir, the aliens have a star-destroying weapon. They're preparing to use it. Lieutenant Murphy and Commander Bennett are attempting to disable it." Morrison turned to Frank Collins. "Can you control your nanobots? Direct them to that installation." Collins shook his head. "Once released, Project Nemesis can't be guided. But I can trigger the shutdown sequence. They'll stop multiplying." Morrison made the hard call. "Do it, and prepare all ships for a direct assault on that weapons platform." Captain Rodriguez had survived the destruction of the Vindicator. Now she commanded a makeshift strike force cobbled together from rescue shuttles and surviving fighters. When Morrison's orders came through, she didn't hesitate. "All ships, follow me in. Target that installation." Her small force dove toward the planet, drawing the aliens' attention away from Bennett and Murphy's sabotage mission. On the installation, Bennett placed the last explosive charge on the Sunkiller's power core. Alien alarms blared as they were discovered. "Time to go," she told Murphy. As they fought their way back to the Retribution, Rodriguez's strike force arrived, hammering the installation with everything they had. The combined attack worked. The Sunkiller's energy buildup faded as its systems failed. 3 days later, Admiral Morrison stood face to face with the Krulnar High Commander on a neutral ship. The alien war fleet was defeated, their doomsday weapon destroyed. "Why mercy?" asked the alien. "You could destroy us all." Morrison thought carefully before answering. "Because extinction isn't our goal. Understanding is." The alien seemed to consider this. "Our people were nearly wiped out long ago. We became afraid of others. Fear makes dangerous enemies of us all," Morrison replied. "Perhaps now we can learn from each other instead." 1 month later, Lieutenant Murphy, now Captain Murphy, stood beside Admiral Morrison at the memorial service for those lost at Nova Colony and in the battles that followed. 20,000 humans had died, but humanity had survived its greatest threat. "We proved ourselves the deadliest force in known space," Morrison said quietly. "But we also showed mercy when it mattered most." As they looked up at the stars, a new transmission arrived. Another distress call from an unknown species, begging for help against an overwhelming enemy. "They've heard what we did to the Krulnar," Morrison said. "Now let's show them what else we can do." Murphy nodded. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not just as conquerors or warriors, but as protectors. The deadliest fleet ever assembled would sail again, this time to save rather than destroy. The end.